Ladies and gentlemen, behind every closed door, there are stories the world never sees, stories that cannot be captured in family portraits or dinner party smiles. Today, I want to talk about one of those hidden stories, a woman's life with a narcissistic husband. When people first meet a narcissistic husband, they rarely see the man his wife sees behind closed doors. To the outside world, he is polished, confident, and magnetic. He knows how to make people laugh at the right time, how to flatter, how to draw attention in a way that feels effortless. Friends admire him. Colleagues respect him. Neighbors might even envy his wife, believing she is lucky to be with someone so charismatic. And in the beginning, she believes it too. His charm is intoxicating. He sweeps her off her feet with grand gestures, intense attention, and words that make her feel like she is the center of his universe. When he looks at her, she feels chosen in a way she has never felt before. He doesn't just make her feel loved, he makes her feel extraordinary. It's not unusual for women to look back on those early days with a sense of disbelief, asking themselves, how could someone who once made me feel so cherished become the same man who now makes me feel so invisible? The answer lies in the mask. His charm is a mask he wears to the world, and sometimes even to her in the beginning. But masks are not permanent, they slip. Slowly, gradually, his true self emerges, not in a sudden explosion, but in small, subtle shifts. The warmth in his voice cools into criticism. The affectionate teasing morphs into biting sarcasm. The attention that once felt like devotion now feels like surveillance. Control is his true language. At first, it looks like concern. Do you really want to wear that? People might get the wrong idea. Or, I'm just looking out for you. Why don't you let me handle the finances? These comments seem harmless, even protective, but over time they tighten like ropes around her freedom. What begins as advice grows into rules, and what begins as protection hardens into domination. In public, however, the mask stays firmly in place. He still knows when to pull out the charm, when to make her laugh, when to put an arm around her shoulders and whisper something sweet. To outsiders, he appears attentive and loving. This duality leaves her disoriented, doubting her own reality. If he can be so kind in public, maybe it really is her fault when he's cruel in private. Maybe she is the problem. That's the danger of the mask. It convinces not just others, but often the victim herself. Living in this split reality takes an enormous emotional toll. She learns to navigate two versions of her husband, the charming man who shows up at parties and the controlling man who shows up at home. And with each passing day, the space between those two versions grows sharper, more painful, more confusing. What the world admires as charm, she learns to recognize as a carefully constructed disguise, a disguise designed not just to fool others, but to keep her silent, doubting, and under his control. Gaslighting is one of the most insidious weapons in the arsenal of a narcissistic husband. It's not just lying, it's not just manipulation, it's the systematic dismantling of a woman's ability to trust her own mind, her own heart, her own memory. Over time, it leaves her stranded in a world where the truth is always shifting and she can never quite find her footing. At first, it seems small, almost insignificant. He might deny a minor detail. I never said that. You're remembering wrong. You're too sensitive. The woman, wanting peace more than conflict, lets it go. She thinks, maybe I did misunderstand. Maybe I am being too emotional. But this is where the erosion begins. Gaslighting plants a seed of self-doubt that slowly grows into a forest, choking out her ability to see reality clearly. The cycle of doubt, every time she questions him, he twists her words. If she recalls an argument, he insists it didn't happen the way she remembers. If she expresses hurt, he insists she's overreacting. If she confronts him with facts, he finds ways to rewrite them until she begins to wonder if she's losing her mind. What makes this so destructive is the consistency. Gaslighting isn't a one-time event. It's a daily drip, drip, drip of distortion until the woman's self-trust is corroded. She begins to wonder, if my memory can't be trusted, then maybe my feelings can't be trusted either. And if her feelings can't be trusted, then maybe she can't be trusted. That is the heart of gaslighting, not just to confuse her, but to make her mistrust herself so deeply that she turns to him as the only reliable source of truth. The disguises of gaslighting. Gaslighting doesn't always sound cruel. Sometimes it sounds protective. He says things like, "You're overthinking again. I'm just trying to help you relax. You worry too much. I'm just trying to calm you down. You're imagining drama where there isn't any." Other times it's cloaked in love. "I love you too much to lie to you. Why can't you believe me? You're the only one who makes things up like this." And in its cruelest form, it's dismissive. "You're crazy. No one else would put up with this from you. You're making a fool of yourself." Every version chips away at her reality. Each one pushes her further from her own inner compass. The silent war within. What people often don't realize is that the worst part of gaslighting isn't the lie itself, it's the battle that happens inside her. She replays conversations in her head, searching for clues. She asks herself, did I really say that? Did I exaggerate? Did I mishear? This self-questioning becomes exhausting. She spends so much mental and emotional energy trying to prove to herself what she already knows. Yet his denials are so forceful, so confident that she starts to feel unstable. The ground beneath her shifts constantly, and she never feels steady. Over time, the war within leads to paralysis. She stops confronting him because the battle with herself is even more draining than the battle with him. It feels easier to surrender, to silence her truth, than to keep fighting a war she feels she can't win. The erosion of identity. Gaslighting doesn't just distort her memory, it erodes her identity. When a woman can no longer trust her feelings, her experiences, or her perceptions, she begins to lose the core of who she is. Her confidence crumbles. She second-guesses decisions, from the smallest ones, like what to cook for dinner, to the biggest, like whether she can leave the marriage. She apologizes constantly, not because she is wrong, but because she no longer knows what is right. She withdraws from friends and family, afraid they'll see the cracks in her reality. And when she does reach out, he often gaslights her by convincing others that she is unstable, dramatic, or unreliable. This secondary gaslighting, turning outsiders against her, deepens her isolation and reinforces her dependence on him, the emotio. Low self-esteem, believing she is incapable, unworthy, or even crazy. Learned helplessness, becoming convinced she cannot escape, change, or even survive without him. Perhaps the most heartbreaking toll is that she stops listening to her own inner voice, the very voice that could guide her to freedom, the moment of recognition. But here's the thing about gaslighting. It works only as long as it remains invisible. The moment a woman names it, the spell begins to break. When she reads about it, hears another survivor's story, or simply dares to say out loud, "This is gaslighting," she begins to reclaim her power. That moment doesn't erase the years of confusion, but it cracks open the fog. She starts keeping a journal, writing down what was said, what was done, what she felt. On paper, the truth is harder to erase. She begins to trust her memories again. She may even confide in someone safe, a therapist, a friend, a support group, and when her truth is validated, it is like oxygen rushing back into lungs that have been starved for too long. Reclaiming self-trust. Healing from gaslighting is not a quick fix. It requires patience, compassion, and often professional support. But step by step, she learns to listen again to her own voice. She practices saying, "My feelings are valid, my experiences are real, my truth matters." At first, these words feel foreign, even rebellious, but with time, they grow stronger. Self-trust is rebuilt not in one dramatic moment, but in countless small ones. Choosing to believe her gut, choosing to honor her memory, choosing to speak her truth, even if he denies it. And perhaps the most profound shift happens when she no longer seeks his validation at all, when she stops looking to him to confirm her reality and instead anchors herself in her own truth. The power of gaslighting crumbles. The hidden strength. Here's the paradox. Gaslighting aims to weaken her, but the very process of reclaiming her self-trust often reveals a strength she never knew she had. To survive years of someone twisting reality requires resilience. To begin healing requires courage. And to rebuild self-trust after it's been shattered requires extraordinary bravery. The scars of gaslighting are real, but so is the woman who emerges on the other side, wiser, stronger, more grounded in herself than ever before. She learns that the truth is not something he can give or take away. It has always lived within her, and now she claims it again. One of the most powerful strategies a narcissistic husband uses to control his wife is isolation. It's not as obvious as locking a door or forbidding her to leave the house, though in extreme cases it can come to that. More often it's subtle, it's slow, it's disguised as love, concern, or even protection. And by the time she realizes what has happened, she looks around and sees that the support system she once relied on, family, friends, community, are no longer there. The beginning, framing it as love. At first, isolation feels flattering. He says things like, "I just want you all to myself. Why do you need them when you've got me? We don't need anyone else, we're a team." To a woman in love, these words can sound romantic. She interprets them as devotion, not control. She believes he simply wants closeness. But behind these words is a subtle shift, a narrowing of her world, a pulling away from the very people who could remind her of who she is. The slow withdrawal from friends. The first targets are usually her friends. He might criticize them gently. "Don't you think she's jealous of you? I don't really like the way they treat you. They don't really understand us." At first, she defends her friendships, but when every outing with them leads to tension at home, she begins to withdraw. She stops going out for coffee, stops answering texts, stops making plans. Little by little, her circle shrinks, not because her friends leave her, but because she learns that maintaining tone. What once gave her laughter, relief, and joy now brings guilt, arguments, and accusations. And so she quietly lets go. The subtle undermining of family ties, family is often next. He may frame it as loyalty. "Your family doesn't really get me. They don't support our marriage the way they should. They're always judging us." Sometimes he stirs conflict by planting seeds of doubt. If she shares a family member's advice, he twists it into criticism. "See, they don't respect you. They're always trying to control you." Over time, she becomes torn between her loyalty to her husband and her love for her family. Eventually, she begins to distance herself from them too, choosing the path of least resistance, because each phone call, each visit, each family gathering seems to come with tension at home. The quiet disappearance from community, whether it's church, work, or social groups, is also chipped away. He might discourage her from attending events by questioning her motives. "Why do you need to go to that? Isn't being with me enough? Are you trying to impress someone?" People at those places don't really care about you. The result is predictable. She stops going. She stops participating. She stops showing up in spaces that once gave her identity, belonging, and joy. And when she does go, she feels his shadow. Maybe he shows up with her, monitoring her conversations. Maybe he interrogates her afterward, asking who she spoke to and what they said. The effort of defending herself becomes too heavy. Eventually, it feels easier to stay home. The trap of dependence. Once isolation is complete, she looks around and realizes she has no one left. The friends she once laughed with have stopped calling. The family she once confided in now feels distant. The community that once embraced her now feels foreign. And there he is, the only one left. Exactly as he land. This is the brilliance and cruelty of isolation. By cutting her off from support systems, he ensures she is dependent on him not just financially, but emotionally and socially. If she considers leaving, she feels she has nowhere to go, no one to turn to, no safety net to catch her. The inner experience of loneliness. What makes isolation especially painful is that it often doesn't look like isolation to outsiders. People may still see her smiling in photos, standing next to him at gatherings, or posting carefully curated updates online. But what they don't see is the loneliness that consumes her when the door closes. She misses the effortless conversations with friends. She longs for the comfort of her family's support. She aches for the sense of belonging she once had. And yet, when she thinks of reaching out, she hears his voice in her head. They don't care, they don't understand, they're against us. It's not just loneliness, it's loneliness laced with shame. Shame that she let those relationships fade. Shame that she can't explain why she pulled away. Shame that she might not be believed if she tries to go back. How isolation maintains control. Why is isolation so effective for a narcissistic husband? Because it removes mirrors. Friends, family, and community act as mirrors, reflecting back to her the truth about who she is. They remind her of her worth, her dreams, her strength. Without them, the only mirror she has is him, and he distorts that reflection until she sees only what he wants her to see: flaws, weaknesses, failures. Isolation also silences her. With no one to validate her experiences, she begins to wonder if she's exaggerating, if she's imagining things. After all, no one else sees what happens behind closed doors. His version of reality becomes the only version, the turning point. But here's the thing, even in the thick of isolation, a spark remains. A memory of how things used to be, a longing for connection, a deep, quiet knowing that something is wrong. Sometimes it's a friend who refuses to give up, sending messages even when the shawl. Over time, the toll of this vigilance is severe. Her body holds the stress, tight shoulders, constant headaches, shallow breathing. She may struggle with insomnia, replaying conversations in her head, analyzing what she said wrong. Her mind becomes trapped in cycles of self-blame. If only I had said it differently. If only I had stayed quiet. If only I had done better.